this video came up on my feed, right? Apparently it's about Yu-Gi-Oh! Potentially, or like, does the Yu-Gi-Oh! Cast want there to be some type of reboot of the original Duel Monster series, or any of them, actually? I'm assuming the original Duel Monster series, since it involves the cast, many of the cast from the original series, like Eric Stewart, Dan Green, Yugi Kaiba, Mark Thompson. And honestly, I've had this question as well. I always thought that there should be some type of Full Metal Alchemist reboot of the series where it follows more of the original story, give us a little bit more of the original grit and a little bit more of the dark themes that Yu-Gi-Oh! Usually has, but that was toned down and essentially muted from a lot of what we see and what we saw in America because, well, for lack of a better way of saying it, they kind of had to in order to get it under certain guidelines for kids television. And if you guys remember, like when Yu-Gi-Oh! Was coming in, they're trying to sell not just the show, but the merchandise to the kids. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, at that time, you had to get past the parents a lot more than you do now, right? You had to get the parents' approval a little bit more. So if it was more or less uncensored, like I would have wanted it as an adult, it probably would have been a little bit more difficult in terms of promotion, right? That's what I think, right? Also, you have to deal with like getting it on TV in America. So probably very strict rules and regulations, right? It even affected the way the music was utilized in shows like Yu-Gi-Oh! Anything on 4Kids, right? It just makes sense, right? Because you're trying to ease kids who are used to American Saturday morning cartoons into the anime niche space and trying to make that niche thing, anime in general, into a more mainstream, more of a mainstream thing to take advantage of if you're talking about as a company, right? That's what I'm assuming. So, but the question is, it's 2025 now. I mean, can we have like a redo of it? I feel like they did do something like that once before. I don't remember exactly what happened with that. I feel like they did try to do something with that before. I'm curious to see what these guys have to say. So let's get right into it. This was at NostalgiaCon in 2025.
No, you slick that hit so quick.
Hi, what's your name and what's your question? Hello, my name's Steven. So my question is, have you guys ever wanted Yu-Gi-Oh! Re-release but uncensored?
No, so when you say uncensored, you just mean as the original script was. So
No, he means with the boobies out. That's what he means. He probably doesn't. I feel like I wouldn't mind if they censored some of the explicit stuff. But like if you're talking about just like the dialogue or the story the way it goes, like I would keep that in.
that is what I felt Dark Sided Dimensions was.
Okay.
I felt that Dark Sided Dimensions, and as
it did feel more like a movie and not like
Darren
a 4Kids
did a
cartoon.
fantastic job directing that.
Shouts
But what
to
we
Darren.
tried to do with the television show, like most American Saturday morning shows, is fill every quiet spot with more music and talking and this and louder and bigger, whatever. When we got to do that,
I kind of did bring
treated
that.
it much more cinematic and an homage to the original content.
Okay,
There were places where it could breathe, and there would be scenes where there was no one talking. And that, to me, was a way to do it. Talking about doing it...
That is a way to do it. I think the guy that was asking the question is not talking about the placement of or the pacing. Oh, well, he is talking about the pacing. I mean, at the end of the day, if you're talking about doing the anime more closer to the manga, it is going to be a significant difference in the pacing, right? And I think he has a point, Eric, in terms of Dark Side Dimensions. This displays that very well. It was my favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Film, period, because it felt like, I mean, it just felt, it did feel a little bit darker, a little bit grittier. And I think the pacing has a lot to do with that.
Uncensored, the transliteration would not make sense in English. To do it exactly without making it sound like you're speaking the language we speak, it would not sound great. If you're reading it, okay, but those the subtitles are not exactly what the translation is either. Okay, if you speak a language and
I don't know if that's what he's referring
where
to.
You speak the language that
I
they
don't
are
think the
speaking,
guy is
and
asking the questions referring
no,
to
like
that.
I know a little bit of French, and I'm like, that's not what that person said, right? So I don't think that is something that I want to do. I think I've done it in Dark Sided Dimensions.
But if you're talking about bringing it down to the basics, getting to the purest form of the story,
Okay.
I want us to do the manga.
Yes. Yeah.
That's what I mean when I say like the Full Metal Alchemist kind of treatment, Brotherhood treatment. Like I don't know if there's probably plenty of people who say that when they think of taking a IP or a story and bringing it back to its roots, which is the manga. As you guys know, a lot of anime diverge significantly from from what's in anime. A lot of it due to production reasons. Sometimes the manga just gets so far ahead, or the reverse actually happens. The anime production gets so far ahead of the manga to the point where even if they have like certain notes on what's going to happen, or what might happen, which would happen. I think that's what happened with Full Metal Alchemist. It still ends up becoming a huge, a separation from what the original author ends up doing, right? So I think Dan has the right point here. I think the guy that's asking the question wants a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood type of reboot of Duel Monsters with more of the darker themes retained, right? You know what I mean? Like for example, I think a fan like the guy I feel like that guy that asked the question, for example, just a basic example, would like to not say Shadow Realm. You know what I mean? Like people actually died, or they would get sent. They would say more. They would say darker things. They would do darker things in that show, right? Because we're dealing with dark magic, evil forces, stuff like that. And I mean, I know even in the 4Kids reboot, you get that. But like, why are you pointing fingers at me? I know that's a gun. You know what I mean? Like that's what I'm talking about. Like maybe uncensored cards designs. Maybe that's what also he's talking about. Although I feel like even then, like I would be okay with some censorship on some of the cards designs. Like I don't need Burstinatrix's boobs out in order for me to enjoy the show. You know what I mean? Like if you have to have Burstinatrix's bust out, or the show isn't like close enough to the original for you, then that's like a personal problem. That's a skill issue. But I think pretty much everything else it should be fine, right? Especially since everything's moving away from TV. Like that's another reason why I think it's more possible than ever. A lot of the stuff, like if they re-release Duel Monsters, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters, like in this way, it's not gonna be on TV anyway. It would be, you might get it on Disney. You might get it on Disney, like just how like Sevens and Go Rushes. You might get it like that, maybe, but or some other platform. But for the most part, it's going to be just online, and I think you get a lot more leeway to do things like that when you know what medium where you're going to place it, right? Like if this was going to be on Netflix, or if it was going to be on Amazon, like I would expect to get the full version, right? You know what I mean? Because like I'm a big kid now, you know what I'm saying? And the people who buy those things, those subscriptions are big kids too, for the most part. So yeah, I think that's what we're talking about. Erik was talking about like localization. How to translate the script to something that American audiences can understand. I think that's a good. I mean, it's an interesting point there, but I think most fans aren't thinking about that at all. If at all, like probably like a little bit. You know what I mean? They just want to see the actual story. Like Pegasus actually dies, right? Does he die, or does he just go on vacation in Florida? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of like what I'm talking about here.
We had talked about that.
Yeah, all of the original actors that you grew up on, but not changing even a name or a word from the manga.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
The names wouldn't be westernized, right?
Like Anzu instead of Taya. I think that's what. What was Joey's Japanese name? I totally I forget his name. I forget his name in the Japanese version, but for some reason I remember Anzu. I don't know what's up with that. Don't look too much into that.
And as a tribute to the work that Takahashi put into those pages, those boards that he was illustrating and writing and inking, I think that would be fitting. So because it
maybe even reanimating certain very iconic scenes. Like I would like the whole thing to be reanimated. But if they did like a Dragon Ball Z Kai version, like that even that would be better, right? Where they reanimated certain scenes that were super important in a more that would be great. The issue I'm concerned about, if I as a fan, would be well, can they get access to the same studio that did Dark Side Dimensions? You know what I mean? Because they would have to, right? It would be really it would have a bad taste in people's mouth. I can already tell as a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, if, like, for example, and I'm not saying anything negative about the studio that did Sevens and Go Rush, but I think it would have a bad taste in people's mouths if they had the same studio that did Sevens do the Yu-Gi-Oh reboot, right? So I think what's more likely going to happen is going to be a brand new story that somehow features these characters. All right? I think that's more likely. I personally would prefer bringing back the cast of Duel Monsters and have all that back again. It would just be so amazing. It would just be so awesome, dude.
Really represent how he started it all and what we continue to benefit from, all of us.
Yeah.
And you guys all want to hear us read the manga from season 0.
Yes,
You guys all want.
I didn't even think about season 0, bro. I still have not really looked too much into season 0. But, man, that would be so hilarious if they did season 0. Something tells me that's not going to happen. Something tells me there is very little hope for that to happen, bro. Oh, my goodness.
Here, season
Right?
0.
Yeah.
Right. Great question. Well, thank you for that.
All right, that was pretty cool. That was a cool little video. I just wanted to talk about it really quickly. I do voice act in Yu-Gi-Oh! Sevens and Go Rush, but, like, I've been a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh! Longer than a voice actor of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right? So I always look at those things from a fan's perspective because I am first and foremost a fan of anime and animation in general, right? I want to be entertained. I want to be excited for projects and stuff like that coming out, whether I'm in it or not. So, like, that's all I got to say. I think hopefully we get something. I actually hope for two things, right? I hope for two things. I want obviously a reboot of Duel Monsters. I also want a continuation of the last seasons of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. I also want, I guess it's three things. I want something involving Duel Links, because Duel Links has the best potential, like, to have a valid excuse to have all of these different characters from all these different series be in the same room together, in the same universe together, right? Like, Duel Links has the potential to become something in an animated format. I don't know how you would do the story, but that is also something I think a lot of people would enjoy, right? And it would bring more attention to Duel Links as well, promote Duel Links for sure. So that's what I think. Even if it's like a mini series, like 5 episodes, it's just something. It'd probably be more like 7 or 8 episodes if you really want to think about it. But obviously I wanted it to be longer. But yeah, that's my thoughts. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. Let me know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Like, would you like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood like style like reboot of Duel Monsters, or would you like it more like Dragon Ball Z Kai? Or do you think, hey, don't even worry about it, man. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Maybe you like the finger pointing. Maybe you like that, Maybe that's what you're about. Anyways, take care of yourself, and as always, stay jamming.